There comes a moment in every woman's life when the world's noise starts to fade and her own voice begins to rise. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through seasons of silence, storms of doubt, and long nights of wondering, am I enough? But when a woman learns her worth, everything changes. She no longer looks for validation in the eyes of others. She begins to see herself through the lens of purpose, not pressure. She no longer runs after people who make her feel small. She walks with those who remind her she's already complete. A woman who knows her worth doesn't shout to be heard. Her presence itself speaks volumes. She doesn't compete, she contributes. She doesn't chase, she chooses. She doesn't wait for permission, she creates her own path. When a woman understands her value, she stops apologizing for being strong, emotional, intelligent, or ambitious. She realizes that being soft is not weakness, it's divine strength. That being kind doesn't mean she should be silent. That being humble doesn't mean she should hide her brilliance. When a woman learns her worth, the world doesn't just see her differently. The world itself changes. Because a woman aware of her power builds, heals, nurtures, and leads with love. She becomes the light in dark rooms, the calm in chaos, the voice of reason when fear takes over. She stops surviving and starts living. She stops pleasing and starts shining. And when she shines, she becomes a mirror, reminding others of the beauty they carry within. So to every woman still searching for her worth, stop looking outside. It's not hidden in someone's opinion, it's resting in your own heart. Once you awaken to it, you'll realize you were never broken, only becoming. When the world grows quiet and she's left alone with her thoughts, a woman begins to truly listen to the whispers of her soul, to the heartbeat of her own worth. It's in these moments of silence, not applause, that she discovers who she really is. The noise of the world often confuses her. Everyone has an opinion, what she should wear, how she should speak, what dreams are too much, what emotions are too sensitive. And for a while, she may listen She may bend herself into shapes that please others, shrinking just enough to fit into spaces never meant to contain her. But there comes a time when she gets tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of seeking approval that never satisfies the heart. In that sacred stillness, she finally realizes something profound. Her worth was never meant to be measured by the applause of others. The claps fade, the praises pass, but her value is constant, unshaken by time, untouched by opinion. It's the same worth she was born with, the same light that has always lived within her, waiting to be recognized. When she starts to value that quiet connection with herself, her entire world begins to shift. She no longer needs to chase after validation because she now understands that peace comes from authenticity, not admiration. She begins to notice that silence doesn't mean emptiness. It means clarity. The quiet teaches her who she is when no one's watching. It teaches her that she's not defined by her roles, titles, or relationships. but by the strength and kindness that dwell in her heart. It's in silence that she can hear the voice that's been drowned out by expectations. The voice that says, "You are enough exactly as you are." This realization is not loud or dramatic. It's gentle, like dawn breaking after a long night. But its impact is powerful. It transforms her from within. With this awareness, she no longer feels the need to fight for attention or prove her worth. She stops performing for an audience that doesn't see her and starts nurturing the parts of herself she once ignored. She understands that her silence doesn't make her invisible, it makes her whole. In silence, she reconnects with her dreams, her boundaries, her inner truth. She begins to live not for approval, but for alignment with her purpose, her peace, her passion. And as she embraces that stillness, she finds a deeper kind of strength. The world might not see it, but it radiates through her actions, her presence, her calm. She learns to respond, not react, to listen, not rush, to be still, not stuck. Her silence becomes her teacher, her guide, and her power. And in that power, she blossoms, not because the world applauds her, but because she finally sees herself. When she learns that true worth is found not in the noise of recognition, but in the quiet of self-awareness, she becomes unshakable. The silence that once scared her becomes her sanctuary. And from that sacred space, she rises, peaceful, powerful, and whole. Self-respect is the foundation of a woman's peace. It is not something she is born understanding. It's something she grows into, often through pain, disappointment, and lessons that cut deeply. For years, she might have confused self-respect with pride, thinking that putting herself first was selfish. She might have been told that a good woman always sacrifices, always gives, always adjusts. And so, she learned to smile through discomfort, to nod when her heart said no, to shrink herself so others could stand tall. But somewhere along the way, her spirit begins to whisper, quietly at first, then louder with time, "You matter too." That whisper becomes the turning point. The moment she begins to listen to that voice, she starts reclaiming pieces of herself that she once gave away too easily. She realizes that self-respect is not arrogance. It is the art of honoring her own soul. It means refusing to let people walk over her boundaries just because she loves them. It means no longer staying in places that rob her of peace, pretending that pain is a part of loyalty. It means choosing herself even when others don't understand, because she finally knows that peace is not something she finds, it's something she protects. As her self-respect strengthens, her energy begins to shift. She no longer begs for attention or chases love that comes with conditions. She stops explaining her worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. Instead, she starts walking in quiet confidence, not because the world treats her differently, but because as she treats herself differently, she becomes selective, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. She learns that not everyone deserves access to her time, her mind, or her heart. Self-respect also teaches her that no is a complete sentence. She doesn't owe anyone an explanation for her boundaries. She doesn't feel guilty for needing rest, for wanting peace, for protecting her energy. She learns that saying no to what drains her is actually saying yes to her growth. And with each boundary she sets, her peace deepens. It's as if every no becomes a brick in the foundation of her strength. People may call her distant, changed, or difficult, but she understands that peace often looks like silence to those addicted to chaos. She's not being cold, she's being careful. She's not being rude, she's being real. And for the first time, she doesn't feel the need to justify it, because she knows that a woman who respects herself commands respect without demanding it. Her actions speak louder than her explanations. There's a beautiful stillness that surrounds her when she finally honors herself. The chaos that once followed her fades, replaced by clarity and calm. She realizes that she doesn't have to fight for peace. She simply has to stop allowing what disturbs it. Her decisions become gentler but firmer. Her smile becomes softer but stronger. She becomes grounded, unshaken by opinions, anchored in her truth. And as she walks through life with self-respect as her foundation, she radiates a quiet power that inspires others to do the same. Because when a woman starts valuing herself, the world around her learns how to value her too. There comes a time in a woman's life when she realizes that chasing validation is like chasing the wind. You may feel it, but you never hold it for so long. She may have built her confidence on the fragile ground of others' approval. Every compliment felt like a reward. Every criticism felt like a wound. She might have measured her worth in the reflection of other people's opinions, how they saw her, how they spoke about her, how they accepted or rejected her. But the day comes when that need begins to fade. When she grows weary of trying to prove herself to a world that changes its standards every single day. And in that moment of awakening, she begins to understand that validation is a temporary comfort, but self-acceptance is a lifelong peace. When a woman starts to accept herself, she begins to see her flaws not as failures, but as features of her authenticity. She stops comparing her chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. She understands that everyone is fighting unseen battles, and her path, though imperfect, is sacredly her own. She starts embracing the body she once criticized, the voice she once silenced, the dreams she once postponed out of fear of judgment. Self-acceptance doesn't mean she becomes perfect. It means she no longer needs to be. It's the gentle realization that she is both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. The beauty of self-acceptance is that it gives her freedom, the kind of freedom that can't be given or taken away. When she accepts who she is, the opinions of others lose their grip. The loudest critic in her life becomes quiet because she learns to speak kindly to herself. The words, "not enough," begin to disappear from her vocabulary, replaced by gratitude for who she has become and hope for who she's still becoming. She no longer asks, "Do they like me?" Instead, she asks, "Do I like who I am when I'm with them?" That single shift in thinking transforms her world. Through self-acceptance, she learns that her value is not up for negotiation. It doesn't rise or fall based on who loves her or who leaves her. Her worth is constant, anchored deep within her being. And the beautiful irony is that the more she accepts herself, the more confident and radiant she becomes. People start to notice her peace, her quiet assurance, her ability to walk into a room without needing to be seen. She becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to impress anyone, but because she's fully at home within herself. Of course, the journey isn't always easy. Old insecurities whisper. Doubt tries to creep back in. But she learns to meet those moments with compassion, not criticism. She no longer punishes herself for being human. She forgives herself for growing. And every time she chooses self, acceptance over self, judgment, she becomes a little freer, a little stronger, a little more whole. When she no longer looks outward for approval, but inward for truth, she finally understands the peace she's been searching for all along. The mirror that once reflected her doubts now reflects her resilience, and she realizes she never needed the world to tell her she was worthy. She simply needed to believe it herself. There comes a point in a woman's journey when she realizes that protecting her peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. For years, she may have confused boundaries with barriers. She thought saying no meant she was being unkind or ungrateful. She thought setting limits would make her difficult to love. So she said yes when she wanted to say no, stayed silent when her soul wanted to speak, and kept giving until she was emotionally empty. She believed that to be loved, she had to be available to everyone all the time. But slowly, she began to understand that love without respect drains the soul, and peace without boundaries doesn't last. When she learns to set boundaries, her entire world begins to heal. She realizes that boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about keeping herself safe within. They are invisible lines drawn from a place of self-awareness, saying, "This is where I end and you begin." And the moment she draws those lines, she starts to breathe easier. She begins to see that saying no is not rejection, it's redirection. It's not about closing doors. It's about choosing which doors deserve to stay open. Boundaries are an act of self-love, not selfishness. They allow her to give from a place of abundance, not exhaustion. Before, she poured from an empty cup, believing that being kind meant overextending herself. Now, she pours only when her cup is full, understanding that real generosity comes from wholeness, not depletion. She no longer feels guilty for resting, for saying she's tired, or for protecting her energy. She knows that her peace is too precious to be traded for temporary approval. As she grows stronger in her boundaries, the people around her begin to adjust. Some leave, unable to handle her new strength. Others stay, respecting the change. And though the shift may feel lonely at first, she realizes it's a beautiful kind of solitude, the kind that brings clarity and calm. She's no longer surrounded by noise, she's surrounded by peace. She starts to notice how much lighter life feels when she's not constantly explaining, apologizing, or compromising her values just to keep others comfortable. With each no she speaks, she reclaims a part of herself that was lost to people pleasing. She finds her voice again. She starts making decisions not out of fear, but from a place of alignment. She learns that peace is not something others can give her. It's something she must protect daily. And this protection doesn't come from anger or bitterness. It comes from self-respect. The world begins to notice the quiet shift in her energy. She walks with more confidence, speaks with more certainty, and carries a calm that no one can disturb. She no longer feels the need to explain her boundaries. Her energy speaks for her. Those who truly value her never feel restricted. They feel safe because they understand that a woman who honors her own limits will always honor others. Her boundaries become her power, her peace, her freedom. And though not everyone will understand them, she finally does, and that understanding is enough. Because now she knows that protecting her peace is not a sign of distance, but a declaration of dignity. Strength is often misunderstood. People imagine it as something loud and forceful, a voice that dominates, a will that never bends, a face that never shows emotion. But true strength in a woman is something much quieter, much deeper. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply breathes. It's not in how hard she fights, but in how calmly she stands. It's in the way she keeps moving forward, not because life is easy, but because she refuses to surrender to despair. For a long time, she may have believed that strength meant having it all together, never crying, never doubting, never asking for help. She wore her resilience like armor, pretending nothing could touch her. But over time, she learned that pretending to be unbreakable isn't the same as being strong. True strength, she discovered, isn't about ignoring pain, it's about facing it without losing herself in it. It's about feeling deeply, but still choosing peace. It's about knowing when to walk away, when to stay, and when to simply rest. There's a quiet kind of power in her calm. When life throws storms her way, she doesn't always react with fury or frustration. Instead, she pauses, she breathes. She trusts that what is meant for her will never miss her, and what leaves her was never meant to stay. That pause, that stillness is her strength. It's the moment when she chooses grace over anger, wisdom over impulse. And that choice, made over and over again, builds a foundation of peace that no chaos can shake. People often mistake her calm for weakness. They think her silence means she's scared. Her forgiveness means she's naive. But what they don't see is the inner war she's fought and won. The countless times she's held back words that could wound. The many nights she's cried herself empty only to rise again at dawn with gentleness still in her heart. That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form, the kind that's born from self-control, from love, from unshakable faith. Her strength isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering herself. It's the strength to stay kind when the world is cruel, to stay hopeful when everything feels uncertain, to stay soft even after being hurt. That kind of strength doesn't make headlines, but it changes lives. It creates warmth where there was bitterness, healing where there was hurt, and peace where there was conflict. Every woman who carries quiet strength knows that her calm is her crown. She doesn't need to shout her worth or prove her power. Her presence speaks for her. People feel her steadiness, her grace, her resilience, even when she says nothing at all. She is the one who brings peace into a room filled with tension, who listens when others argue, who forgives when others fight. Her strength is not in her voice's volume, but in her heart's stillness. And through all her battles and silent victories, she learns something profound. That strength isn't always visible, but it's always felt. It's in her patience, her persistence, and her peace. It's in her ability to stand tall, not because the world is gentle, but because she has learned to be gentle with herself. Gentleness has often been misunderstood as fragility, yet in truth, it is one of the most profound forms of strength a woman can possess. The world sometimes praises harshness and noise, mistaking them for power, while overlooking the quiet force that lies within a kind and tender heart. A gentle woman is not weak. She is someone who has learned to master her emotions, to stay calm in chaos, and to respond with grace when the world gives her every reason to react with anger. Her gentleness is not born from ignorance of pain, but from wisdom gained through it. She has known heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, and loss. Yet, through it all, she chose to remain soft. She chose not to let bitterness harden her spirit. That choice requires courage, for it is far easier to close one's heart than to keep it open after it has been broken. Her gentleness becomes her greatest rebellion, a quiet refusal to become what hurt her. She knows that love, empathy, and understanding can disarm even the harshest storms, and she carries that knowledge like light in a dark world. When she speaks, her words do not wound, they heal. When she listens, she does so with her whole heart, offering comfort where others might offer criticism. Her presence has a soothing effect. She doesn't demand attention, yet she commands it through the peace she radiates. In her calmness, people find rest. In her kindness, they find safety. She teaches others that strength and softness are not opposites. They are partners, perfectly balanced within her spirit. Her gentleness shows in the way she treats others, but also in the way she treats herself. She no longer speaks harshly to her own reflection or punishes herself for not being perfect. She understands that compassion begins at home, with her own soul. She forgives herself for past mistakes, knowing that growth often comes wrapped in pain. She embraces her imperfections, seeing them not as flaws, but as evidence of her humanity. That self-kindness becomes the soil in which her confidence grows. Gentleness does not mean she avoids confrontation or hides from truth. It means she approaches every challenge with clarity and composure. Even when she must walk away, she does so without bitterness. Even when she must speak hard truths, she does so without cruelty. Her gentleness gives her control, for she knows that reacting with anger only feeds chaos, but responding with calm disarms it completely. This balance between compassion and strength allows her to move through life gracefully, unshaken by the negativity around her, and perhaps most beautifully, her gentleness becomes contagious. People who meet her begin to soften too. They speak more kindly, listen more deeply, and act more thoughtfully. Her energy transforms environments, turning tension into understanding and fear into faith. She is proof that gentleness is not weakness, but divine wisdom in motion. It is the strength to feel deeply, to love boldly, and to forgive freely in a world that often tells her not to. Her gentle spirit carries the power to heal, not just herself, but others too. For wherever she goes, she leaves behind a sense of calm, a breath of peace, and a reminder that real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply whispers with kindness. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes that her purpose is far greater than people's approval. For too long, she might have lived for others, trying to please everyone, saying yes when her soul begged her to say no, molding herself into shapes that fit the expectations of the world. She may have believed that love and acceptance depended on her ability to meet others' needs, even at the cost of her own dreams. But there comes a day when she looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the person she's become. That's when something deep within her begins to stir. A gentle but powerful awakening that whispers, "You were not born to please. You were born to live with purpose." When she begins to understand her purpose, her life takes on new meaning. She starts to see that pleasing everyone is an impossible task, because no matter what she does, someone will always have an opinion. So instead of chasing approval, she begins to chase authenticity. She chooses to listen to the quiet voice within rather than the noisy voices around her. That voice, the one she once ignored, becomes her compass. It reminds her of who she truly is and what she's meant to do in this world. It tells her that her dreams matter, her voice matters, and her peace matters. In the purpose gives her direction, it transforms her energy. She no longer wakes up trying to prove her worth. She wakes up wanting to serve it. Her actions start to align with her heart, not her fears. And in that alignment, she finds strength she never knew she had. There's a deep calm that comes from living on purpose, a confidence that doesn't come from being liked, but from being true. She stops asking, "What do they want me to do?" and starts asking, "What was I created to do?" That simple shift changes everything. As she embraces her purpose, she begins to understand that not everyone will understand her. Some people will question her choices, doubt her dreams, or even try to pull her back into old versions of herself. But she no longer takes it personally. She knows that when she stops living for approval, she might lose some people, but she'll find herself, and finding herself is worth every loss. She learns that living with purpose means walking alone sometimes, but it also means walking freely. Her days start to feel lighter. Her decisions become clearer. She begins to move with intention, not obligation. When she works, she does it with passion. When she loves, she does it with depth. When she speaks, her words carry meaning. Everything she touches feels purposeful, because it flows from authenticity, not from the pressure to please. She no longer needs validation because fulfillment has taken its place. The beauty of this transformation is that once she begins to live by purpose, she inspires others to do the same. Her courage becomes contagious. People see her walking boldly in her truth, and it gives them permission to walk in theirs. She becomes a mirror of strength, a reminder that peace doesn't come from being accepted by everyone, but from being aligned with who you truly are. And in that alignment, she discovers the freedom, power, and joy she had been searching for all along. Forgiveness is one of the hardest lessons a woman ever learns. Yet it's also one of the most liberating. At first, forgiveness feels impossible. The pain runs deep, and the wounds seem too raw to heal. She replays the hurt in her mind, the words that broke her spirit, the betrayal that left her hollow, the moments that made her question her worth. For a long time, she holds on to the bitterness, believing it protects her. It feels like a shield, a way to keep from being hurt again. But over time, she begins to realize that what she's holding on to isn't protection, it's poison. The more she clings to anger, the heavier her heart becomes. The more she replays the past, the less she lives in the present. Forgiveness, she comes to understand, isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's not about forgetting or excusing. It's about choosing freedom over resentment. It's about releasing herself from the grip of pain so she can breathe again. The person who hurt her may never apologize, may never even understand what they did. But she decides to forgive anyway, not because they deserve it, but because she deserves peace. That moment becomes a quiet revolution in her soul. At first, forgiveness feels like surrender, but soon she sees it's actually power. It's reclaiming control over her emotions, her memories, and her energy. The pain no longer dictates her days. She no longer allows her joy to be dependent on someone else's remorse. She starts to see forgiveness as a bridge between who she was and who she's becoming. It's the process of unclenching her fists, softening her heart, and choosing to move forward lighter than before. There are days when she still feels the sting of the past, and that's okay. Healing isn't a straight path. It's a dance between remembering and releasing. Each time she chooses peace over bitterness, she grows stronger. Each time she chooses love over hate, her spirit expands. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it transforms how it lives within her. What once felt like a scar becomes a symbol of survival. What once broke her becomes a reminder of her resilience. As she forgives others, she begins to see the importance of forgiving herself too. She learns to let go of the guilt she's carried. Guilt for staying too long, trusting too much, or not knowing better at the time. She realizes that she did the best she could with what she knew then, and that self-forgiveness is just as sacred as forgiving others. In showing herself mercy, she finally stops fighting with her past. This journey of forgiveness changes her energy completely. Her eyes soften, her smile returns. She laughs more easily because the weight on her heart has lifted. She no longer needs revenge or recognition. Her peace is enough. And through her calmness, others begin to see that forgiveness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength to rise without bitterness, to love without fear, and to live without chains. In forgiving, she doesn't erase what happened. She reclaims who she is beyond it. She learns that forgiveness isn't letting someone else off the hook. It's setting herself free. And that freedom becomes the sweetest form of healing she's ever known.